Welcome back. Now, if you remember a couple of months ago, we reported on a Wyoming landowner. This is a guy who owned about 8 acres, and he built a private pond on those 8 acres for his animals and for his children to use as a swimming pool. And the EPA began using him as a test case for new powers that they're giving themselves. Now they've gone one more step further, and this is a story that's from the Washington Times. Power grab. EPA wants to garnish the wages of polluters. Now understand how this has evolved. First, they jumped onto private land. They've never regulated private land before. This is water that is not coming onto his property or going off of his property. This is unprecedented in that case. The next thing they did was they levied a $75,000 per day fine on the man, and they don't report that accurately in the article. They say that they slapped a $75,000 fine on him. No, that's per day. They're charging him $75,000. They also say that they're accused of violating their own rules, a power currently used by agencies like the IRS. Now, that's not a legitimate power, and I'm going to tell you why. We need to catch this, because if you allow this kind of usurpation to stand, and the longer you allow it to stand, the more difficult it is for people to roll it back. As we see here, this is an organization that is reporting on this. They have a problem with the EPA doing it, but evidently they don't have a problem with the IRS doing it. The IRS doesn't have legitimate constitutional and legal powers to do that. But here's what they appeal to. They go back to the Debt Collection Improvement Act of 1996, and they say they have authority under that. It's centralized federal collection operations under the Treasury Department, which oversees garnishment of wages or tax refunds. Now, actually, that is something that's not where the IRS got that power. The IRS has been doing that for a long time, and they don't even appeal to any ruling for that. But even if they did have a ruling, even if they had a law from Congress, it would not trump the Constitution. Look at what we're losing here. Look at the 6th Amendment that gives us due process. There's no due process here. Look at the 8th Amendment that says we will not be given excessive fines like $75,000 a day. That isn't excessive by anybody's standard. It also says that if there's a civil action, and that's the way that they're doing this, they're saying these are not criminal actions, so we don't have to give you a jury trial. Well, the 7th Amendment says that we get jury trials if it's a civil action, if it's over $20, and this is way over $20. And they're saying here that under that law that they presume to have the authority, every federal agency, not just the EPA, every federal agency has the authority to conduct administrative wage garnishment, provided that the agency adopts approved rules for conducting hearings where debtors can challenge the amount of debt or repayment schedule. These hearings are not trials. They're not jury trials of your peers. This is an administrative hearing before the same agency that created the rules, before the same agency that polices the rules, that assesses the fines. They're going to listen to you. This is not a trial by your peers, where if it's an unreasonable law like this one from the EPA, the jury should nullify that law. That's why we have juries. It's to nullify those kind of laws. So they're throwing out a tradition that is enshrined in our Constitution. Where does that tradition come from? Well, it goes all the way back to the Magna Carta. We used to lead the world in liberty. Now we're leading the world in tyranny, because we can see that in the UK, they are now adopting these same tactics there, and the members of Parliament are horrified that this is happening. This is a story that was put up from the International Business Times on InfoWars. UK MPs are horrified by the HMRC, that's their IRS, overriding the Magna Carta by raiding bank accounts. Yes, they're going to go in and just confiscate money out of the bank accounts like the IRS has been doing here for decades. And of course, this is something that goes back 800 years. And as they point out, Britain's taxman is going to be taking money directly out of bank accounts without a court order, and that breaches the 800-year-old protection of ordinary people that's inscribed in the Magna Carta. MPs said that they were horrified by these proposals, said we're talking about the ability of one organ of the state to have the unique right to go against the Magna Carta charter, go in and seize without judicial process or review a bank account. Well, yes, that's right. And if they let this stand, it's going to be like it is here in the United States, where it isn't going to be one unique agency like the IRS. After they do that for a few years, they will extend it to all of the bureaucracies of the government. when you allow them to usurp your rights, to steal them, when they are guaranteed by our documents, like the Magna Carta, by the Constitution. The Constitution didn't give us our rights. Neither did the Magna Carta. What they did was they recognized that we have those rights and that governments will not take them. This is a quote that one of the MPs in the UK mentioned. It's from Prime Minister William Pitt. Now, he was there at the time of the American Revolution. He stood with the American colonies against what the Crown was doing to the American colonies. He said this. He said, "Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom." That was the quote that they brought up in the debate. They always tell us that it's necessary. And what they're telling us with the EPA, what they're telling them in UK is that, well, it's efficient. It's necessary that we do this because we don't want to spend too much time or too much money in these collections.
From the water table to our soils to the atmosphere itself, our world is becoming more and more toxic each and every day. But it's not just the air outside that's toxic. Indoor air has been shown to have 2 to 5 times higher concentrations of pollutants than even outdoor air. And most Americans spend 90% of their time inside using toxic chemicals within their homes. There are more than 42 million smokers in the United States. Well over 1,000 types of mold and mildew linked to numerous conditions. And don't forget the fact that 6 million Americans live with pets they're allergic to as well. When I began to research these statistics, it was clear to me it was time to start cleansing my lungs in order to combat the toxic environment that we cannot escape, but that we can fight back against. Made with organic and wild cultivated herbs and manufactured in the USA, the new InfoWars Life Lung Cleanse is here in a convenient spray bottle that can be brought with you throughout any toxic environment. Now available exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.